Is there magic in the Towers of Light series? This is one of the most common questions I get about my series because it is an allegory written from a Christian worldview. It looks pretty fantastical, and so there's sort of maybe an expectation that it's very Harry Potterish with spells and incantations and things like that. And that's just not what the story's about or how it works. But there are fantastical things that some parents might interpret as magic. So I just want to give you a quick overview of what was going on in the story, why things are the way they are, and that'll help you make a better decision as a discerning parent as to what your children read and what you might have for your family. So I think to start out with, allegorically, there is the light, which represents a physical expression of our faith. And so by living out our faith or living out the children's faith in the book, they are shining their light. That is used, that analogy is used throughout the series. That sort of idea that if I'm being faithful to what is right and good and true and following the tenets of the good book, so to speak, that the children will be shining the light, and that light pushes back the darkness. The darkness is represented by kind of a black smoke that shows up. There are these things called sensors that are pushing out this black smoke into the world, and that black smoke corrupts things. Everything the darkness touches, it corrupts. And so you end up with sort of a corrupted version of things. And this is true whether we're talking about the Towers of Light series itself, or we're talking about some of the spinoffs like Logan versus the Hateful Strawberries. The corrupted strawberries were corrupted by the darkness. And so really the darkness is a representation of all of the things that are evil in the world. And so you have people that then are affected by the darkness that wouldn't be, that are affected by evil, that wouldn't be doing things the way, they would have otherwise. That if the darkness has, quote, taken someone, they're now evil. And so really from a quote magic perspective, the closest thing that looks like a spell or an incantation or magic is there's a point in the series where the bad guys are using sensors to corrupt things, right? They're bringing it in and they corrupt things, and then once things are corrupted, it takes the light to kind of wash that away. And so I don't know if that helps a whole lot, because we're really trying to. I was, as a literary thing, I was avoiding the word magic as much as I could. There are a few places where that word might be listed because it was the best word to describe something fantastic that happened. But it's really, throughout the series, it's really about the children's faith shining the light against the darkness and destroying it. And so what you'll find in the story as it goes along is that if the darkness gets pushed out of something or out of a person, there are sort of consequences to that person for having been affected by the darkness. Early on, a child that had been affected by the darkness, that they kind of knocked it out of him. He's disoriented for a while. That's part of what happens. So anyway, I hope that helps. I think the other thing to note is that there are fantastical elements in the story. We have a frog that when he jumps, there's a rainbow pattern you see in the air that then he can heal bumps and bruises. And we have a kitten that can just teleport places. And we have a duck that shines the light on things. So, and these were the stuffed animals my kids had when they were at the ages I was writing the stories. And so I gave them a fantastical thing. I think as a sort of maybe doctrinal thing, or the way to think about it is, God did use animals in fantastical ways in the Bible. Balaam's donkey talked, right? So it's not out of the realm of possibility that God could do something fantastical with an animal. We don't see a lot of that, but there's definite reference to that. The other big thing that I get a little bit in this sort of magic realm, how is it fantasy? Is there's a dragon that ends up in the last book in the series, and a lot of people have concerns about that, but there's a dragon in Revelations. And so part of this is the theme of that last book in the series is God is the author of victory, right? Like that's the ultimate victory is with God. And so along those lines, the dragon that shows up at the end was really appropriate because it calls back to the dragons in Revelations. So again, I worked really hard to avoid this sort of, I'd say, sort of pagan magic or sorcery or those kinds of things. All of this stuff that's in the series that is about sort of evil, that sort of might look like magic, is because of the darkness, because things have been overtaken by this dark smoke that has caused evil things to happen. And essentially, the children in the story are shining their light. That's, book one in the series is Light of Mine, shining their light to push back that darkness, to destroy it. And so I hope that helps. As a discerning parent, I know that I wouldn't want to, give my kids something I wasn't comfortable with. So I really hope this helps you. That I did work really hard to make it clear, very clear, that the light is about our faith and, obedience to God's word, and about following our conscience, listening to that still small voice, praying to fear no evil. These are all things, putting on the armor of God, guarding our hearts. These are all things that are, kind of core biblical ideas that help children navigate life. And so I wanted to put those in and just do it in a fantastical way that keep them engaged. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions if you want to put them in the comments.